Hi, I'm Rennie Pilgrem. You're in my studio in West London. I DJ, I'm an artist, and I run TCR recordings and mainly make breakbeat music. I'm bored as well. Okay, so the nice people from Future Music have asked me to show how I do a track. To save a bit of time, I've just come back from China, and on the flight home I assembled some beats and little ideas on the plane in GarageBand, and plan is I'll do a few things in GarageBand and then move on to Ableton and then move stuff into Logic. What I normally do is I'll find beats that I like and probably chop them up, use the bits of the beats I like, bits of loops, mix it together with some other stuff. I would normally start with beats and then get some sort of bass line action going on. Yeah, I'm just going to play you some the just mainly rhythms I've got going on, and then I'm going to play in a sort of, well, a keyboard line. So that's just an open hat that I've taken from another loop, and there's more of a techno loop where I've actually taken out the 4 on the floor and just left the clap and occasional kick. So yeah, taking that now, there's a noise that I found on GarageBand that I quite like, so I'm going to play in a bass line that I've got an idea for. And then there are some other beats and things that I've got going on, like percussion and stuff. And really from now, then I would probably take this stuff, export it track by track, and bring it into Ableton to maybe add some weird effects and try see what comes up with Ableton. One of the things I've found exporting audio is that it's actually good to move things over from the beginning, because sometimes you can get the beginnings of loops and stuff clipped off, which is pretty annoying. So I will now shunt everything over and track by track export it as a bit of audio where I can put it into another program. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to export each individual track. Actually, I think with GarageBand it goes straight into iTunes for some reason. So I'll export each track individually, and then I can load them into Ableton. Okay, so I've opened up Ableton and I've located the audio that I ran from GarageBand, and I'm going to drag it over into this mode, so it's sort of in the pattern mode of Ableton, which you can then click on and you can then see the audio. I'll put it to the same speed, which is 133, which is the official speed for breakbeat. And you'll see it in the Breakbeat Guide 2004. Right, so then I'm going to basically bring in various bits of audio and get some more tracks going, which you go to insert audio track, get some more going. Now I'm just going to have a look to make sure that the tracks start roughly when they should be starting, and etc. Now I'm going to change the preferences, which I forgot to do in Ableton, so that the Novation keyboard can provide the output so that it goes through the desk. And I also changed the syncing so that if I want to play some stuff off the keyboard, which I will in a bit, it will be automatically synced up. Okay, so everything's playing. There's one more. I'm going to add the bass line noise. Suitably moronic for today's youth. Right, now I'm going to basically scroll through some of the sounds on the Novation and see what takes my fancy that I can add into this pot, and I'll probably just record it straight into Ableton as a bit of audio, and then tidy up any timing problems that might happen. So I don't know, I'm going to scroll through here and it might take a bit of time, so I'm sure it won't be that interesting. Okay, so there's a sound that I'm going to record into Ableton. The way this is set up is basically any delay or arpeggio to automatically sync with the tune, which makes it handy for getting stuff being in time, etc. And I've got a choice of either recording it in as MIDI or as audio, and I think I'm probably going to just record it in as audio, because then I've just got a chunk of sound that I can bring into Logic. Right, hopefully that should be, there's a button here that flips over into the other side. Now I'm hoping it should be somewhere in here, a piece of audio, so that's where I've recorded it, should be here. And I've got to see how hideous that timing is and see what I need to change. What I'll do now is bring it over into the pattern side, bring it here, move the start point to the right place there, and see how in time that is. Okay, there's a loop function in here so that you can keep your riff going round and round, which is always handy. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just have a look to see if there's any marker points that I need to move around so that the timing's a bit better. I won't do too much because I don't mind it being quite organic, which is another way of saying badly played. I'm just going to move that a bit so that it's a bit tighter and then see how that sounds. Move a few more now. Okay, so I'm just gonna I've just found a sound effect that I quite like on this keyboard, so I'm gonna bung that in there as well, and then I'm going to find all the audio and put it into Logic, which is where I would normally end up with a tune to sort of probably arrange and mix down and stuff. Okay, so this is actually quite quiet, so I'm going to just get the volume up with this little fella here, make it a bit more meaty, and then like last time I'll just find a start point and just check that it's all there. As it's more of a sound effect, then I'm not really worried about it being particularly in time and stuff, because I'll probably put effects and things on it. So now I'm just assuming I can locate the new bits of audio. I'm going to put it onto my hard disk, my hard drive, sorry, and then connect it to my studio computer, which is this fellow down here, and get it into Logic. Okay, so now I've opened up Logic. I have moved the sounds via the hard drive onto this computer, and so I'm now just going to find them and then add them into Logic. So I've put them on the Firewire drive here, so I've now got to, I've called it Shanghai because that's where I've just been DJing. And okay, so I found them there. I've opened them up, added them all, so now they're in here. So now I'm going to give them each their own track here. I'm going to see whether they actually play vaguely in time. Amazingly they do. I'm going to now get a 9, well sorry 9, I'm going to get 8 bars going on so that I can, I'm going to play a bass line in using a real bass, which I've in the last year or so started to learn to play and quite enjoying putting a bit of real sounds into stuff at the moment. Okay, I'm setting the recording path for the when I'm back still on the bass. Okay, finding the folder of the other stuff, give it a title, bass reel. Okay, so I've given myself a 16 bar loop, and I'm just going to play in some bass via this little beauty, which is actually supposed to be for guitars, but bass sound really good for it. It's got sort of classic amp sounds, choruses, distortion, stuff like that, and it's it just makes basses and guitars sound a bit more interesting, a bit more authentic. I'll go straight through the desk. Go into here, you'll see a level coming up there, and I'll just try a couple of passes and see if I can play it vaguely in time. Go away! No.
There's popping out. Sorry.
There's
answer machine's on.
What?
Answer machine's
okay.
on.
Right.
Popping out.
Right. I couldn't think of anything stupid to say
You
there.
can't actually play that, by the way.
No. Right. Right, okay, so yeah, I'm not the world's, I've only been playing for about a year, I'm not that great, but obviously you can keep going until you get something right, and apart from anything else, it's good fun playing a bit of real bass. Okay, so I'm just going to have a listen, see how hideous that sounds. Bung that over there, shall I? So I've played in this bass line, which as you can see looks beautiful. It's a bit rough around the edges, but I'm going to keep it there for now because I might well change what I'm going to play after I've heard it for a while. There it is. now I'm going to, if I'm doing breaks where you base stuff on drum loops and stuff, I normally add my own kicks and snares and bits of percussion and stuff. So I will think of work out a kick pattern that works with this, find the suitably hideously thundery kick to add to this, and then do the same thing with the snare. That'll take a while, so I don't really want to see me scrolling through that. Okay. Right, so I've played in a kick that I'm fairly happy with, like a kick pattern. And what I normally do then is just scroll through different sounds. Luckily, a friend of mine, Klaus Hill, who's now in Australia, managed to load in hundreds and hundreds of drum samples and stuff like that, so I can you can pretty much scroll through and find your own stuff, which is nice on the DXS24. So yeah, bunging a kick, and now going to search for the ultimate snare experience. Okay, so yeah, what I normally do when I'm at this stage with a tune is I will try and limit myself to not do too many hundreds of tracks stretching off into the distance, but just get the basics where I'll get some percussion, get some hats, I've got a bass line, I've got a sort of squelchy noise, I've got a keyboard noise, so I'll add probably some hats, probably maybe a ride, maybe some percussion and stuff, and then start thinking about some sort of vocal sample that I can find. I've got a metronome that comes in after 7. It's useful, isn't it? Okay, so I have this little thing here called the Panasonic dictaphone, which I've been using as I travel around just to grab little sound bites and ideas from things. It could be anything from George Bush off the telly to things at train stations or airports or people ranting and raving, kind of anything, literally anything and everything you grab on here. You can get a couple of hours worth of sounds. It's very lo-fi, but sometimes lo-fi is quite a nice way to go. And so what I've done is I've got an output here out of the headphone socket going into my DJ mixer, coming through this desk and then into Logic, and I'll just try a couple of things and see how they sound. This thing's actually something I got at the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, believe it or not. I'm not quite sure what they're saying, but hopefully it's not something too terrible. Okay, that was a bit too loud, so I'm going to turn it down a bit. Okay, so that's in there, and I'm now going to chop it up and see if there's a bit that basically goes or looks like it might go with this track. So it's sort of trial and error. Probably put some plugins in it, through it, or on it, and then see where we. Is it still rolling?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't really know what I Okay, so yeah, so there's a vocal thing which sounds right. And now I suppose what I don't normally do, and I've got a few ideas. I mean, normally I would add quite a lot more, but I tend to turn things into loops. So I turn on the loop function on everything, so that, for instance, you would end up with, say, 7 minutes of everything playing all the time. And then the way I've discovered that's quite a nice way of arranging is if you have everything on, and then you go through it and turn bits off where you don't want them, rather than putting things where you do want them, which can be quite a nice fast way of working, which I do personally believe that dance music should be done quickly rather than slave over it for months at a tune. I think a lot of the best tunes have been done quite fast. So I would do that and see where we get to. Okay, so now I've got various bits of the tune and I'm doing an arrangement. I would be thinking of just having drums on their own first of all, and then gradually building it up, and then working towards dropping out into a breakdown after a couple of minutes, then it kicking back in. Obviously the end of the tune would break down just to beats normally, or something that would be really easy to mix with. One of the things I found doing music with a computer is you can get completely, totally sick of a tune before you finished it, because you've heard it so many times. So even though I've got some nice Mackie speakers, I actually arrange on these little fellas, just because they stop you getting bored. You can still hear what you're doing, so you're not using them to mix down, but using them just while you're arranging, so that you can hear what's going on, but you're saving your ears and you're not getting bored. So that's one of the worst things about doing music like this, is you're hearing the same thing over and over again, and you maybe start out being excited by something, and after hearing it for 500 times, and funnily enough, you're not quite so excited by it anymore. So it's a way of you stopping your ears getting quite so bored with it. Little things that I would do with, for instance, the bass that I was playing. Because I don't play the guitar, I'll quite often muck about by maybe going into pitch, if I can find it, and I can turn it into, approaching it like a guitar, maybe put a delay on it. Not far off a bit of plucked guitar, and maybe might get someone to play it afterwards, or I might not use it at all. But it's something like that's quite nice. You get a latency when you do that, so you've got to watch it. You've got to move it around afterwards. As far as compressing stuff, me personally, I'll compress a kick, and I'll compress the snare, and I'll compress the bass. But I've got like an 8-in-1 compressor here, so I do the compression on the desk. There's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't use the compression on Logic. I've got used to using it there, and otherwise, kind of rule of thumb for me is I try and have the bass as loud as the kick, so they're roughly about the same. If you haven't got good speakers and you often can't hear subs and things, and you can end up having the bass a lot louder than you necessarily think it is, and which means that when your track is mastered, then you will have a volume problem of your tune because the bass is so loud. So as far as taking a track to be mastered, when I think I've finished a tune, I will play it out a couple of times, ideally in different clubs, to see A, how it goes down, B, how the mix sounds, and then if I think it's okay, I'll give it to a couple of other people who I trust to then play it out and see what sort of reaction they think, and then it'll be off to the cut to master it for vinyl, where they kind of beef it up and make it as loud as possible, and hopefully give you something that will do the business. I think if I'm coming up with a lead line or something like that, if it's something that seems to vary massively in volume, then I would compress it. Otherwise I would try and make a sound that I really like, that seems to work on its own and with the tune, that I can hopefully build it all in. If there's something where there are problems with it kind of not working, sort of not being loud enough sometimes and too loud other times, then just go into alternation and tweak the volume up and down as you need it. But I try and avoid doing that too much, because it can get a bit complicated and a bit like, sometimes it's a bit lost, sometimes it isn't. So I think the other thing that I normally do, which I think is worth doing for people, or worth people doing, is bounce your track down so you've got your master, and then bring it into a fresh Logic tune, and then chop it up and do some crazy edits and weird, use some weird plugins on bits, and basically reassemble it. So you're doing a sort of almost like post-production on it, which you can then do some crazy things that would take too long if you're doing it with individual tracks in Logic. If you DJ, then you realise that things can be quite minimal and more powerful by being minimal than having a kitchen sink. So if you bring in things, and if you keep bringing in stuff without dropping other stuff out, then at some point your track's going to sound very busy. So as a rule of thumb, normally I think when the track's kicked off, if I brought something else in, then I would normally pull something else out, so that you know, you're not getting too full on, or you're not getting not too full on, you're not getting too busy. And amazingly, the weird thing in breaks that hardly anyone does is break beat got popular by DJs realising the crowd like to dance just to beats on their own, and very few people break down a track to just beats, and if you do, the crowd normally love it. It's kind of that's what made breakbeat happen, and for some reason it's overlooked. So I would recommend at least one point in tune where you just break it down to the beats, because that's where it all started.